One sinister move, one foolish mistake. That's all it took to send these stars from Hollywood royalty to industry outcasts. Here are 10 old Hollywood celebrities who threw their careers away over absolute nonsense. Number 10. Michael Richards. Given Michael Richards' incredible rise in Hollywood, who would have thought that just 3 minutes could bring it all crashing down? He was one of television's most beloved comedic actors and held the industry at a standstill with his unforgettable portrayal of Cosmo Kramer on Seinfeld. From 1989 to 1998, his eccentric, unpredictable character gained critical acclaim and 3 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. And no, it wasn't a fluke. Richards' talent was undeniable, and for years, fans adored him for bringing Kramer to life in a way no other actor could. But while his Seinfeld co-stars managed to transition into successful post-show careers, Richards took a different and much darker path. What do I mean by this? For nearly a decade after Seinfeld ended, Richards kept a relatively low profile. He only appeared in guest roles and took on a few minor projects, save the reprisal of Kramer on Mad About You. But everything changed in 2006. One moment, one outburst, and just 3 minutes on stage was all it took to derail his career forever. Here's how it happened. During a stand-up performance at the Laugh Factory in November 2006, Richards lost his temper at a black audience member who had been heckling him. But while any sane celebrity or person would have exited the scene or found a way to defuse the situation, what happened next was a shocking, racially charged rant with video evidence. Realizing the repercussions of his actions, Michael Richards issued a public apology when he appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman. He expressed deep regret for his actions and also personally apologized to civil rights leaders Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Was that enough to make amends? Of course not. The damage was already done. The man who once made millions laugh was now a pariah in Hollywood, his career effectively over. Producers see him as dead weight and actively avoid him for A-list roles. The only silver lining in Richards' career is that he made a lot of money before being blacklisted. His estimated net worth stands at about $30 million, more than enough to ensure he never has to work again. Don't take this to mean he's done trying to repair his image, though. He released his 440-page memoir, Entrances and Exits, in 2024, offering a deeply personal account of his life, career, and the scandal that derailed it all. But while some fans believe his remorse is genuine, others see his apologies as mere damage control. Regardless, the incident remains a defining moment in his legacy, proving that no matter how high a celebrity climbs, one misstep can bring it all crashing down. The next celebrity on our list can attest to this, though his story was much more dark.
Timmy, your new nose looks great.
Thanks. Best $200 I ever spent.
Number 9. Chris Farley. If you think Michael Richards was funny, wait until you witness the majesty of Chris Farley. He wasn't just funny. He was a force of comedic nature in the golden age. From his earliest days on Saturday Night Live to his breakout roles in films like Tommy Boy and Black Sheep, everything Chris Farley touched turned into gold. And why wouldn't it? He brought a level of commitment to comedy that only a few could match. His brand of humor was explosive, physical, and completely uninhibited, yet it never felt forced. Most of the actors paired alongside him struggled to keep their cool on camera. They laughed so hard because Farley would do anything for a laugh, whether it meant hurling himself into a table or flailing wildly across the stage. But behind the boundless energy and infectious laugh was a man weighed down by deep insecurities and personal demons. Farley's biggest mistake wasn't a blip, a fit of rage, or an unforgivable slur. He was addicted to his guilty pleasures, which inevitably became his Achilles heel. You see, much like his idol John Belushi, Chris Farley struggled with alcohol and drugs. He was suspended multiple times from SNL because of the latter, and despite repeated stints in rehab, he could never fully shake the addiction. His friends and mentors, including Bernie Brillstein, tried to help, but Farley's relapses were as inevitable as the sun rising at dawn. He feared that if he wasn't performing, he wasn't worth much at all, so he constantly took drugs and alcohol to remain the loudest, funniest person in the room. In his final years, Farley's health deteriorated rapidly. His weight ballooned, his performances became more labored, and he struggled to maintain the manic energy that had made him a star. He still wanted to be Chris Farley, the wild, unpredictable comedian who made people double over with laughter. But his body was giving out. His voice was hoarse, his movements sluggish, and it was clear he wasn't in control anymore. The saddest part is that his greatest fear, fading away into obscurity, unloved and forgotten, played out to the last letter. He died alone in his Chicago apartment on the 18th of December 1997, the exact same way Belushi passed 15 years earlier. The most haunting detail? The woman he was with reportedly took photos of him as he lay there, thinking it was hilarious that he was too out of it to keep up with her. It was a grim and heartbreaking end for a man who had spent his whole life trying to bring people joy. No matter how you think of it, Farley's rise and fall is a haunting reminder of Hollywood's darker side, the way fame, pressure, and addiction snuff out the light from even the brightest stars. He wasn't the first to fall victim to it, and unfortunately, he wouldn't be the last. Number 8. Bill Cosby. Has Hollywood ever seen a more damaging fall from grace than Bill Cosby's? Once celebrated as America's dad, Cosby built an image of wisdom, humor, and fatherly guidance that millions admired. But it was all a facade. A much darker truth lurked beneath his polished exterior, one that rightfully destroyed his legacy. Born in 1937 in a Philadelphia housing project, William Henry Cosby Jr. grew up in a working-class family. He took on odd jobs to support his family after the passing of his brother and briefly joined the U.S. Navy. Cosby discovered his flair for comedy in one of his low-paying bartending shifts, leading to a career in stand-up and his first big break, a debut on The Tonight Show in 1963. 2 years later, he made history by becoming the first black actor to star in a network drama and winning 3 consecutive Emmy Awards for his performance. However, his greatest success came in 1984 with The Cosby Show, a sitcom that redefined television. His portrayal of Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable was a cultural phenomenon, drawing in 30 million viewers weekly and earning him millions in syndication deals. And then it happened. Andrea Constant, an employee at Cosby's former university, accused him in 2005 of drugging and assaulting her. Like that wasn't enough, 13 other women came forward with similar accusations, though the case was quietly settled out of court. Cosby avoided the consequences of his actions for nearly a decade until 2004, when his attempt at a career comeback reignited public interest in the allegations. Soon, over 50 women accused him of drugging, harassment, and SA allegations. His legal team dismissed the claims, questioning why the women hadn't reported the incidents earlier. However, a bombshell revelation changed everything. Court documents from 2005 surfaced, showing that Cosby had admitted to acquiring Quaaludes to give to women he intended to sleep with. These drugs caused immobility, leaving the victims unable to resist. The fallout was swift. Networks pulled The Cosby Show from syndication, stand-up gigs were canceled, and his statue at MGM Hollywood Studios was removed. Universities revoked his honorary degrees, and Temple University, his alma mater, erased his legacy. The dreadful chapter hit a conclusion in 2018 when he was convicted of aggravated assault and sentenced to prison, though his conviction was overturned in 2021 on procedural grounds.
We just used to hold each other.
Number 7. Mickey Rourke. If you hear someone say Mickey Rourke could have been the next Robert De Niro or Al Pacino, give them a nod and say they're absolutely right. From the talent to the looks and even the manly magnetic presence that made the aforementioned men what they were, Rourke had everything in his arsenal to be one of Hollywood's finest, and to a large extent, he was. Who can forget his breathtaking run in the 1980s, starring in films like Diner, Rumblefish, and The Pope of Greenwich Village? He was edgy, unpredictable, and undeniably brilliant. Everything Hollywood loves in a leading man. But unfortunately, he fell almost as quickly as his ascent. So what went wrong? How did one of Hollywood's most promising stars lose it all? At the height of his fame, Rourke's personal demons began catching up with him. He lived a life on the edge, indulging in late-night partying, chasing women, and pushing every limit in sight. He once admitted to staying out 4 nights in a row before a shoot, showing up on set so exhausted that he physically couldn't stand during a scene. But the problem with debauchery is that it starts off as pure excitement. It feels like you have the world in your hands with everyone at your feet. But sooner or later, there's always a price to pay. By the 1990s, Rourke's nightlife and substance abuse had eaten deep into his career. His name, once synonymous with raw talent, became associated with recklessness and self-destruction. And don't even get me started on his string of questionable career choices. He turned down major roles in Platoon, Beverly Hills Cop, The Silence of the Lambs, Pulp Fiction, and Top Gun. These were all films that became massive hits without him. He abandoned top projects for terrible ones, sinking deeper into Hollywood's B-list. Worse still, his reputation as difficult to work with made directors wary of hiring him. But it wasn't just career missteps that derailed him. Rourke's personal life was equally turbulent. He had a troubled past, including experiences with physical abuse and abandonment. Feeling lost in the industry he once ruled, Rourke turned to professional boxing, his first love before acting. However, the brutal sport left him battered and unrecognizable, with broken bones and a face that required multiple reconstructive surgeries. His return to acting in the early 2000s was met with skepticism. Could he ever reclaim his former glory? It took years of mental battles and therapy, but he found his way back to Tinseltown. He starred in 2008's The Wrestler, a fascinating film that explored the uphill battle of an aging, broken-down wrestler. It landed him an Oscar nomination and showed he still had talent, but it's clear he'll never regain the career he was truly capable of. Number 6. Faye Dunaway. Most movie stars can survive a flop or two, but some roles are so atrocious that they completely upend an actor's career, leaving them out of work or forever changed in the eye of the public. Faye Dunaway was set to become Hollywood royalty with Bonnie and Clyde, Chinatown, and Network under her belt. But a single notorious performance in Mommy Dearest was enough to destroy her. The 1981 biopic Mommy Dearest, based on Christina Crawford's book, portrayed Joan Crawford as a cruel and unstable mother. Dunaway's over-the-top performance only amplified the film's melodrama, damaging her own reputation in the process. Apart from the scathing reviews the film received, Dunaway was given a Worst Actress Razzie that effectively ended her reign as a leading lady. She later admitted in an interview that the movie permanently altered how audiences perceived her, a regrettable mistake she hadn't foreseen. But it wasn't just her portrayal in the 1981 biopic Mommy Dearest that ruined her career. Hollywood has always been unforgiving to women who demand control, and Dunaway had a long-standing reputation for being difficult on set, a label that stuck to her like a curse. Her diva-like behavior irked co-stars, and behind-the-scenes feuds made directors shy to work with her again. Poor Dunaway was relegated to mere television roles, guest appearances, and smaller parts. Even when she tried to reinvent herself, more public setbacks ensured she remained in obscurity. Remember her highly publicized fallout with Andrew Lloyd Webber over Sunset Boulevard? Of course you do. It had the entire industry at a standstill. Dunaway was abruptly fired from the production, with insider reports claiming her singing wasn't up to standard. Dunaway would later fight back with a lawsuit, claiming that the show was struggling financially and needed a scapegoat. Looking back, Dunaway's trajectory, to a tiny extent, is a textbook example of Hollywood's double standard. Many of her male counterparts were just as demanding, if not more, yet they weren't labeled difficult in the same way. The industry turned on her, and audiences followed suit. Now in her 80s, she still works, but the days of leading roles in major films are long behind her. Number 5. Emile Hirsch. Now, Emile Hirsch may not exactly be an old Hollywood actor, but come on, we just have to talk about this mess. It's not every day you see an actor throw away his career over something so reckless, and yet, here we are. The story takes us far back to the 2015 Sundance Film Festival. Hirsch was drinking the night away at a VIP booth in a pop-up nightclub. One thing led to another, and pandemonium ensued. Hirsch was physically assaulting a woman to the point where two people had to physically pull him away. But here's where things get interesting. The woman in question was Danny Burnfield, a Paramount executive whom Hirsch had foolishly choked unconscious. Why? For no sane reason. Witnesses described him as aggressively pursuing Danny, making unwanted advances, and insulting her when she rebuffed him. He reportedly grabbed her, put her in a chokehold from behind, and slammed her onto the floor, all while she struggled for air. It was a despicable show of violence that required harsh punishment, but Hollywood has a way of burying issues like these. At first, it seemed like Hirsch would get a slap on the wrist. He was arrested, then quickly released, and Burnfield was initially hesitant to press charges. Rumors say she feared professional repercussions. Fortunately, she reconsidered and pursued the case further. Hirsch was charged with felony, aggravated assault, and misdemeanor intoxication, facing up to 5 years in prison. However, after a brief stint in rehab, he took a plea deal and received only 15 days in jail, 90 days of probation, and community service, punishment many, including Burnfield, saw as the bare minimum. Just when you'd think the backlash would be enough to send him into permanent Hollywood exile, Quentin Tarantino did the unthinkable by casting him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a move that left many shaking their heads. But hey, justice won in the end. Emile Hirsch went from being a promising young actor to someone whose name now sparks more controversy than admiration. And for what? A drunken, violent outburst that could have seriously harmed someone. If there's ever a case of an actor throwing away everything over sheer nonsense, this is it. Before we go into the next celebrity on our list, consider subscribing to the channel to stay updated on our latest videos. You wouldn't want to miss Hollywood's unforgettable characters, legendary actors, and forgotten stories, would you? One of them, in particular, is this. Number 4. Mel Gibson. From Hollywood royalty to industry outcast and back again, Mel Gibson's career has been one hell of a ride. Once hailed as the golden boy of Hollywood, Mel Gibson was a pretty unique actor. Surely every Tom, Dick, and Harry either had the charm, talent, and looks to make it big in the industry, but Gibson had all three. He shone like a million stars in the 1979 hit Mad Max and doubled down with a masterclass performance in Gallipoli 2 years later. Gibson was an A-list megastar by the time he headlined Lethal Weapon in 1987, but it was his work in '95's Braveheart that truly brought forth his legendary status. Not only did Gibson direct, produce, and star in the epic, but he also took home 2 Academy Awards for Best Picture and Best Director. He was untouchable, the most wanted man in the industry, until he wasn't. By the early 2000s, Gibson's off-screen antics overshadowed his achievements. A highly publicized DUI arrest in 2006 turned into a disaster when he was caught on camera launching an anti-Semitic tirade at the arresting officer. And no, it didn't stop there. In 2010, an audio recording surfaced of Gibson making vile threats to his then-partner Oksana Grigorieva, which included misogynistic and racist slurs. The backlash was swift. Hollywood turned its back on him, and he was essentially blacklisted. Without his influential friends in Hollywood, Gibson might have disappeared from the spotlight. Robert Downey Jr., who had also faced his own struggles in the industry, apologized and urged Hollywood to give Gibson the same second chance he had received. Jodie Foster also supported him by casting him in The Beaver and praising him as one of the most talented people she had ever worked with. Gibson, on his part, slowly rebuilt his career, taking roles wherever he could find them. And then came Hacksaw Ridge in 2016. Like a breath of fresh air, the film brought him back from the dead. His direction earned him an Academy Award nomination, a sign that Hollywood was willing to welcome him back, at least in some capacity. But unlike others who have been permanently canceled for far less, Gibson's resurgence raises the question: was his exile justified, or was his redemption inevitable all along? Either way, the next star on our list never got the same opportunity. Number 3. Barbara Payton. Saying Barbara Payton is one of Hollywood's most tragic cautionary tales is an understatement. At the height of her career, Payton shared the screen with leading stars such as Lloyd Bridges, James Cagney, and Gregory Peck. She was even likened to icons like Marilyn Monroe and, at one point, was the highest-paid actress in Hollywood, earning $10,000 per week. However, Payton's time atop the Hollywood ladder was brief, largely because of the choices she made in her personal life. Hollywood at the time was highly controlled by studio executives who dictated an actor's public and private image. This made Payton a walking red flag as she embraced a wild lifestyle that included affairs with powerful men, excessive partying, alcoholism, and drug abuse. One of her many infamous scandals came when she became entangled in a destructive love triangle with actor Franchot Tone, who was once married to Joan Crawford, and B-movie actor Tom Neal. The situation exploded in 1951 when Neal viciously beat Tone, leaving him with severe injuries, including a broken nose and a fractured cheekbone. The shocking incident made national headlines, and instead of being seen as a victim of the scandal, Payton was branded as reckless and immoral. She was deemed box office poison and was shut out from A-list roles. After losing her reputation, Payton struggled to find work by taking whatever roles she could get. But by the mid-1950s, she was abusing alcohol and drugs, which only accelerated her downfall. Like that wasn't bad enough, she lost custody of her only son in 1956, a devastating blow that deepened her addiction. She was so poor that she turned to escort services just to fund her indulgence. By the time Payton was found unconscious next to a garbage dumpster in February 1967, she was physically and mentally a broken woman. She lived only another 3 months, dying from heart and liver failure 6 days before her 40th birthday. Number 2. John Gilbert. As one of Hollywood's true matinee idols, John Gilbert had the world at his feet, or at least he once did. At the peak of his powers, his name was rightfully mentioned in the same breath as Rudolph Valentino, and his on-screen chemistry with Greta Garbo was the stuff of legend. Alas, his career went downhill when the industry transitioned to sound. And no, it's not for the reasons you think. Unlike actors who struggled to get roles once talkies blew the industry away, Gilbert spiraled down in a movie that many believe was orchestrated by MGM mogul Louis B. Mayer. How so? Walk with me here. The feud between Gilbert and Mayer wasn't just a matter of clashing personalities. It was deeply personal. Mayer was said to insult Garbo, with whom Gilbert was romantically involved. The actor got mad and retaliated physically, with both men exchanging fists. But here's the crazy part. In an industry where studio heads wielded immense power over their stars, Gilbert's retaliation was unforgivable to Mayer. He thought long and hard on how to silently punish the star without making it seem too obvious, and then came the idea. Unlike many silent stars who struggled due to thick accents or weak vocal presence, Gilbert's speaking voice was reportedly fine. Yet when his early sound films were released, audiences were shocked by an oddly high-pitched and unnatural voice. It created a disconnect with his romantic image, and audiences fell out of love. Wondering about Mayer's alleged role? Rumors say Mayer had ordered Gilbert's voice to be tampered with, through technical manipulation or poor sound direction, to ensure his downfall. MGM continued to cast Gilbert in roles that seemed designed to humiliate him, stripping him of his former grandeur. By the early 1930s, his star had faded, and he left the industry altogether. Alcoholism took its toll, and in 1936, at just 38 years old, he died of a heart attack. Whether Mayer deliberately destroyed his career or not, one thing is certain, there's way more to Gilbert's story than meets the eye.
Darling, will you marry me?
Why, you unpredictable little...
Number 1. Gene Tierney. Okay, so right off the bat, Gene Tierney's downfall wasn't due to scandal or personal failings. It was triggered by a single, senseless mistake that wasn't even her own. Before tragedy struck, she was one of Hollywood's most stunning leading ladies, mesmerizing audiences in Laura and Leave Her to Heaven. With talent, fame, and a bright future ahead, she appeared unstoppable, but she lost all of it because of one fateful misstep. The catalyst? Attending a USO event to support American troops in 1943. She was pregnant with her first child, But joy turned to devastation when she unknowingly contracted German measles. Daria was prematurely born months later and suffered from severe disabilities, including deafness, blindness, and intellectual impairments. But while Jean blamed herself for bringing pain to her child's life, it wasn't until much later that she learned the heartbreaking truth. An overzealous fan had knowingly broken a rubella quarantine to meet her at that USO event, thus exposing her to the virus. The worst part? The fan approached the actress and casually mentioned how she had snuck out of isolation to shake the actress's hand. The emotional weight of this tragedy proved unbearable for the defeated actress. Jean doubled the blame on herself, even though it was entirely beyond her control. Though she continued working in Hollywood, the actress was crumbling under the weight of guilt and sadness. It haunted her every day, to the point where she was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She endured multiple hospitalizations, including electroshock therapy treatments that left her memory fragmented. By the mid-1950s, Tierney's career had slowed dramatically, and she stepped away from Hollywood to focus on her health. She made a brief comeback in the coming decade, but was never able to reclaim her former stardom. If that's not a cruel twist of fate, I don't know what is. So there you have it, 10 of the most ridiculous reasons why old stars lost their careers. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and tell us in the comments which story got you the most. Be sure to check out the video currently displaying on your screen for more Hollywood madness.